All right, let's talk about psychedelic therapy. It's making a huge comeback, right? And for a long time, scientists have known that the experience itself is what's really key to the healing. But there's always been this missing piece of the puzzle. What exactly is that breakthrough moment people always talk about? Well, today, we're going to dig into a new scientific tool that might, just might, finally give us an answer. And this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? I mean, we've all heard the term bad trip, and the immediate thought is that's something you have to avoid at all costs. But what if it's not? What if confronting those really difficult, challenging emotions isn't some side effect to be scared of, but actually the very engine of the whole therapeutic process? You know, for decades, researchers have been wrestling with this exact puzzle. They just knew that the secret to long-lasting change was hidden somewhere inside the psychedelic session. The big problem was the tools they had to actually measure that experience, they were telling let's just say, a very incomplete story. So basically, scientists had two main buckets they could put these experiences into. You had the mystical experience on one hand, feelings of unity, sacredness, transcendence, and that stuff, it almost always pointed to positive long-term outcomes. Then, on the other hand, you had the challenging experience. This is the fear, the paranoia, the grief, and yeah, that stuff usually predicted worse outcomes. So the takeaway seemed pretty simple, right? Good trips are good, bad trips are bad. Case closed. Yeah, but that simple story had a massive, gaping hole in it. Turns out, those existing measurement tools were missing something absolutely critical about what a difficult psychological journey is even about. So, here was the big issue. That old questionnaire, it was a blunt instrument. It could tell you if someone was feeling scared or sad, but it couldn't tell you if they actually faced that feeling and worked their way through it. It was great at measuring the storm, you could say, but it was completely blind to the calm that might come right after. And this quote from a patient in a psilocybin trial just nails it perfectly. They said, rather than be afraid of it, I challenged it, and at that point it kind of vanished. It went away. See, they didn't just have a challenging feeling, they confronted it. And in that moment of confrontation, they found a resolution. That was the thing the science just couldn't measure yet. So, to try and fill this gap, a team of researchers, in this case from Imperial College London, they came up with a new concept. And it's one they kept hearing over and over again in their patient interviews, this idea of an emotional breakthrough. And just listen to the way people described it. One patient said it was an emotional purging. The weight and anxiety and overwhelming depression have been lifted. You hear that? This isn't just about feeling bad. It's about a release, a purging. That's a totally different thing than just being stuck in fear or sadness. So they decided to give it a proper, formal definition. Emotional breakthrough, or EB for short, is that experience of confronting those difficult emotions or memories, which then leads to this feeling of emotional release, of catharsis. It's really the difference between getting crushed by a huge wave and actually learning how to ride it. And of course, if you're going to study something scientifically, you need a way to measure it. So they developed a brand new tool, the Emotional Breakthrough Inventory, or the EBI. It's basically a short questionnaire made specifically to measure this exact experience of cathartic release. Okay, so they've got a new theory and they've got a new tool. Now it's time to put it to the test. The big question was, is this EBI thing actually measuring something real and meaningful? What they did was pretty clever, actually. They set up this online survey with a really simple 3-step design. Okay, so step 1, they measured everyone's well-being before they had a planned psychedelic experience. Step 2, just one day after, they had them fill out all 3 questionnaires. The old ones for mystical and challenging experiences, plus the new one for emotional breakthrough. And then step 3, 2 weeks later, they checked in and measured their well-being again to see what, if anything, had changed. And this wasn't just a handful of people. They got 379 participants to complete the whole process, which gave them a really solid chunk of data to work with. All right, so this is where it gets really interesting. What did all this data, using this new EBI tool, what did it actually show about the psychedelic experience? Well, 3 big things jumped out right away. First, the number crunching confirmed it. Emotional breakthrough is its own separate thing. It's not just a part of a mystical experience, and it's not the same as a challenging one. It's distinct. Second, and this is huge, context is king. People who went into it with a therapeutic goal, in a supportive setting, they reported way higher levels of emotional breakthrough. And third, it was dose-dependent. Pretty straightforward. Higher doses generally meant higher EBI scores. But the real magic was in prediction. I mean, look at this. The new emotional breakthrough score on its own was a pretty strong predictor of good outcomes. The mystical experience score was too. But when they put all three measures together into one big model, whoa, its power to predict who was actually going to feel better just went through the roof. So get this. This new combined model could predict nearly 20% of the change in a person's well-being. Now I know, 20% might not sound like a crazy high number to you, but in this kind of psychological research, that is a huge deal. It's a really powerful result. What it means is we finally have a much, much clearer picture of what's actually driving the therapeutic change here. So the big question is, what does this all mean for the future? How does having one new measuring tool really change the game for mental health treatment?
Well, the biggest takeaway is this, and it's a huge confirmation of what therapists have been saying for years. It's not just about the drug. It's about the experience. The actual chemical is only one part of the story. The psychological journey you go on and the supportive environment you have for that journey, those things are absolutely essential for healing to happen.
And this clicks perfectly with a big lesson from history. If you look back to the 60s, some of the early studies tried to, neutralize the context. They just wanted to see what the drug did on its own, so they'd give it in these cold, sterile environments. In one infamous case, they even restrained patients. And guess what? Surprise, surprise, those studies didn't show much therapeutic benefit. This new research really helps explain why. They had stripped away the very thing that makes an emotional breakthrough possible. So at the end of the day, this isn't just some abstract academic thing. The EBI gives therapists a real, concrete tool they can use to design better, more effective psychedelic therapy. It's solid proof that the goal is to create a safe space, a container that encourages and allows for that free release of emotion. It helps us understand that confronting the hard stuff isn't a bug in the system, it's a feature of the healing process. And that just leaves us with a pretty incredible thought, doesn't it? For decades, this vital piece of the therapeutic puzzle was happening right in front of everyone's eyes, but we just didn't have the right tool, the right lens to see it clearly. So if we can finally measure emotional breakthrough now, it just makes you wonder, right? What other secrets of the mind, what other keys to healing are just sitting there waiting for us to invent the right tools to finally discover them?